We are live in an emergency podcast that's been in the works for, I'd say, 3 days, but really we've been preparing for a long time for this. Tom Brady has officially announced his retirement from the NFL after 22 seasons. 20, of course, were with the Patriots, the last two with Tampa Bay. In the 2 hours since the announcement, I feel like everybody's had adequate amount of time to process their feelings. So I'll throw it to you, Bernd, and how have you processed your feelings in the past 2 hours since it's been announced?
I have to be honest, it's not as shocking as Brady leaving 2 years ago was. So it's kind of like when Brady announced he was leaving the Patriots in 2020, it kind of felt like the bandage is being pulled off just a bit, and it starts to get real that hey, maybe he's not going to finish his career with the Patriots. He will play somewhere else. It like the process of realizing Brady's career will be over soon. It actually started for me 2 years ago, and then came, of course, Saturday's news with the will he, won't he, and now today it just was like, oh yeah, well, of course, yeah, it makes sense, and it makes sense that he will go out now. He always said he wanted to play until he's 45. He will turn 45 in 5 months, so it it just makes sense. It's sad to not see him go out as a Super Bowl champion, but it's even sadder to not see him go out as a Patriots with the Patriots. But maybe, who knows? Maybe that changes and he signs a ceremonial contract.
That's that's the big thing I feel like everybody's gone through in the past 2 hours. Of course, we'll get more into Brady as a player and a person and what he's meant to Patriots fans and everybody in New England and the world and football, all of that. But in the past 2 hours, a lot of the discourse has been about he didn't mention the Patriots at all in the 9 slide, right? Exactly. In the 9 slide announcement, no mention of the Patriots. The Patriots did. Robert Kraft released a statement. The Patriots posted a nice little picture saying farewell. Pretty much every team in the league has said something. Everybody's processed it. Maybe now that they know, instead of on Saturday when it was like, wait, what is this? Post something and then delete it and take it back and all that. Everybody's starting to process that a little bit, but a lot of the talk has been about no mention of the Patriots. And from my camp, where I come from, I think Tom Brady is far too calculated, and he's been around the block too many times to just go out there and be like, hey, thanks for everything, Tampa. I'm out, and that's it. And there's nothing else. I can't believe that that's just what it's going to be. I would expect, like you said, a ceremonial contract where he, whatever, retires a Patriot, or I'm sure there's going to be a statue in Gillette eventually. I'm sure, maybe not a number retirement, but something along the lines, probably a number retirement. No one should ever wear 12 for the Patriots again, but there are so many things to come. I think today should and probably will end up really being about him and not how everybody else processes him leaving. It's about the 22 years that he spent in the NFL and how great he was and how we're probably never going to see anything like him again.
Absolutely. Like, you can talk about him leaving out the Patriots, but at the end of the day, it's about Tom Brady. And as you said, he's too calculated to make any decisions that would be an affront to the organization. We all know he loved it here. We all know he appreciates Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, the team, his former teammates, his current teammates as well. Those are in Tampa. But at the end of the day, he will do something, be it a contract, be it another post, be it a whole, I don't know, weird Instagram post. Maybe he revitalizes the TV Times that he did back when he was in New England. Who knows? But the fact is, it should, as you just said, it should be about Tom, and it should be about what he accomplished and how he helped shape the NFL. Unlike any other player, at least in my lifetime, and in a lot of fans' lifetimes, really. I mean, I think Robert Kraft mentioned it in his statement that a whole generation of NFL fans grew up watching Brady and the Patriots dominate year after year, do something that nobody had ever done before, do it in an era that was designed to prevent something like that from happening. And Brady and Belichick, who also, of course, has to be mentioned along, those two are inseparable. But as for Brady, he did something nobody ever did, and nobody probably will ever do. And that's what the talk should be about. And that's what people should focus on, what he meant to the Patriots, what he meant to the NFL, and what he meant to the game as a whole. Because Brady's career coincided with the international growth of the NFL as a product. And he is the face of that growth. Make no mistake about it. Of course, Peyton Manning and nowadays players such as Patrick Mahomes, those are the stars of the game. But there was no Tom Brady. There will never be another Tom Brady. People around the world who know nothing about the game of football know something about Tom Brady. And that just speaks for his accomplishments, it speaks for his status, and is what we should celebrate and honor today rather than him not mentioning the Patriots in a post on Instagram.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you said it. I said it earlier. Tom Brady, after 22 years, retires. He's been in the league for 22 years. I'm 22 years old. I do not know a world without Tom Brady in it. You know, he was winning national championships in college before I was even a thought, in anybody's mind. So I feel like that's a good barometer, obviously for me, but to see the longevity and really how impressive what he did was and is. Um, I feel, to me, he outreaches the game itself. He has a larger reach and a bigger aura about him than football itself. Because, like you said, internationally, there are people who might not know that much about football, might not know the rules or the teams, but they know Tom Brady. Tom Brady is just a figure more than he is a football player. So the and how far he's reached, how much he's meant. I grew up, in New England. Obviously, we grew up in. You can speak more to the international thing, but growing up in New England, by the time I was conscious enough to know what football was, Tom Brady was already a legend. He had come into an organization that had never won before, that was, not even the lovable loser, because people like to say that, but I know my parents hated the Patriots because they're like, this team's terrible. It's kind of like a waste of space, they don't win. What's the point? There was the whole thing with building a stadium in Massachusetts. They were like, yeah, send them to Rhode Island or Connecticut. We don't even care. Back then there was just a level of indifference about the Patriots. And then he comes along with Belichick and turns them into the most successful franchise in the history of the sport in a span of 20 years. Just so impressive and unbelievable to actually think about. Every year growing up, it was Tom Brady and the Patriots. They're penciled in for the AFC Championship game, and that was my life for 20 years. The 20 of my 22 years was, all right, we'll see you in January because the Patriots are going to be in the AFC Championship game. And to have that be a reality for, a kid and for a whole region of watching football is unbelievable, because everybody else around America and the world is like, that's how ridiculous is that? No one could even think of that, but we actually got to have it. So I think that's so cool, and it really speaks to how special he was.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just have to look at some of the numbers that he put up and the things that he accomplished. I mean, today is the 7th anniversary of the Super Bowl 49 win over the Seattle Seahawks, which was obviously his 4th ring. He has added 3 rings since. And I remember when Jimmy Garoppolo got drafted earlier that year in 2014, actually, and Belichick was talking about the reality of Brady not getting any younger and being closer to the end of his career than his beginning. That is 8 years ago. And until today, he was still around and he was still playing at an elite level. And he was still winning Super Bowls. He won 4 Super Bowls after Garoppolo was drafted. And Belichick talked about, yeah, Brady, we know his situation. And he just didn't care. And there's only so many athletes. And I hate comparing like the GOAT of the game of football to the GOAT of basketball to the GOAT of,
Right.
I don't know, ski jumping, whatever. You can't compare across sports, is what I'm saying. But to see a player like Tom Brady play on that high a level into his 40s is unheard of. You have it maybe in tennis with Roger Federer, who's 41, I guess, 42, but he's on the downside. Obviously, he hasn't won a major tournament in quite some time. Brady won a Super Bowl last year, and it's just insane to see what he has been able to do and what he has meant to the game, to the region, to millions of fans around the world is something that is in a way incredible to see, because he brought people together that were indifferent about the Patriots, were indifferent about the game itself, but him becoming this icon, this greatest of all time. I mean, it really is the case. It's just the stuff of legends, and that's what the two of us got lucky to witness, and what you out there watching this get lucky to witness, or maybe not. Maybe you're a Bills fan watching this and going like, yes, he's gone.
Right.
But for the most of us here in this space, it was an honor to watch this man play football and conduct himself the way that he did. It's not just the on-field stuff, but also for all the hate that Brady's getting online, he was the epitome of a professional. Everything he said was on point. He didn't say a lot of those things. Like, he was not the Cam Newton type, who was more outspoken, but also very nice to deal with from a coverage perspective. But Brady was, if you're a quarterback, if you're a kid playing sports, if you're anybody trying to do something professionally, if you handle things like Tom Brady did, you will be successful. I would say. I would think. So, those are all. There's so many things to talk about. You could go look at specific games. You could look at records. You could look at longevity. But at the end of the day, all of those combined form the tapestry that is Tom Brady, and that kind of tapestry is unmatched. And heck, if I were the Pro Football Hall of Fame, honestly, I would just open the doors. But I could see the Patriots do that, actually. Just forgo the process, just march him right in, like have him emerge from a cloud of smoke, or like, I don't know. I think I don't know, Guns N' Roses, Slash from Guns N' Roses did it at the Super Bowl halftime show, like popping out of the ground. I could see Brady do that at Gillette, like wearing a red blazer already and just emerging. And then he's in the Hall of Fame. That like that being his last statement. I don't know. But man, what a player. What a player.
Yeah, right. You mentioned it, and I think Robert Kraft mentioned it in his statement. It was either Kraft or Goodell, but they talked about how in the ultimate team sport, that's what football is known as. It's the ultimate team sport. There isn't a single player, and probably never will be another single player, who had such an impact on the success of their team. And it's undeniable. A lot of stuff, people will argue, mostly because, they don't actually believe it, just because they want to argue against it, especially with Tom Brady. But it's undeniable that wherever he went, winning followed. It was his second year as a starter. They didn't make the playoffs. And then he never missed the playoffs again as a full-time starter. Oh, wait, he got hurt, whatever happened. But it was like he won a Super Bowl and then he missed the playoffs, and he was like, okay, I'm going to do the first thing. I like that way better. And I'm just going to continue to do it. And that's what he did. And he went down, the Tampa thing, a lot of people won't like to talk about because it's so weird seeing a guy who you consider your quarterback to go be the quarterback of someone else. But the last 2 years in Tampa have done such a great job of really putting into perspective how important he was to overall team success, and how, a lot of people say quarterback or wins aren't a quarterback stat, but they're a Tom Brady stat, because he has such an effect on wins. And he really did with Tampa. They were a terrible dumpster fire organization who had talent but just couldn't win games, and he went in and immediately won a Super Bowl, brought him to the playoffs again in a game where we saw it a couple weeks ago. They had every chance of coming back and winning towards the end because that's who he is and that's what he does. Um, so the last 2 years did a really good job of that, and then the first 20 was really just to watch somebody be the face of a franchise and the face of a region of the United States. He from Maine down to Rhode Island, all over. Tom Brady was everybody's guy. No one disliked Tom Brady. Tom Brady was the reason that everybody stuck through it and were Patriots fans. And he transformed an entire fan base and then transformed the league eventually. And really, like you said, just what a player. Fantastic. And Dark Blue Gold, he's always in these and he's starstruck that Burns here. But he says Pats fans probably need to acknowledge that it's not about us right now. We've got the rest of his life to talk about his Pats legacy. But it's about Tom Brady and how special he is and what a great player he really was. And he's somebody that we'll probably never see again.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we see it year in, year out. It's so hard to sustain success in the league. And Brady did that. And Brady he did, like, everybody was waiting for the cliff to come. There were, ESPN, I think, built a whole narrative around, hey, Brady falling off the cliff. And the cliff never came. And it won't come because he retired before he even reached the cliff. He was playing at an MVP level this year.
Yep.
I have zero doubt in my mind that if he would have come back next year, he'd still be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL at minimum. And that's what you want to see a guy. Of course, I would have loved to see him go out winning his 10th Super Bowl with the Patriots. That did not happen. But he goes out having played a tremendous game. That's Dark Blue Gold.
It's the perfect thing.
That's the perfect thing. He transcends all of us. But Brady going out at the peak of his performance is just, that's what you want to see. A lot of careers end differently. A lot of players are forced to retire at different stages. Like, we saw Peyton Manning win a Super Bowl, but that was like a shell of Peyton Manning.
Right.
We did not see Tom Brady win a Super Bowl this year, but he was still Tom Brady. Like, the last memory of Tom Brady we have is him playing good football. And I mean, that's what that I think that's what he wanted, like going out looking good and not necessarily looking good like in a vanity sense, but he wanted to prove that he could still do it. And he proved it year after year after year. And so he just kept adding things on as long as he was motivated. And now that the motivation is gone, as he mentioned in the statement, he has nothing left to prove. He didn't have anything left to prove after 2004, actually. I mean, he could have retired
10 years ago, 15 years ago.
He could have retired after the ACL tear when people were talking about Matt Castle maybe being the better option for the Patriots moving forward, which obviously did not prove true. But he had so many options to go out, and he didn't choose any of those roads. He stuck through with it, and he I feel like I'm trying to find new superlatives, but I can't because it's just Tom Brady.
Right.
And I really hope that Brady becomes like an adjective. Like, hey, if somebody does something at the best possible level, that's Brady. And I hope that's something that will last as a legacy, not just in the football world, but in a linguistic sense, that Brady is synonymous with being the gold standard.
I like that. I like that a lot. We saw it this year with, if Mac Jones did something well, and obviously Mac Jones, Tom Brady, completely never put them in the same sentence. It's such a disservice to both of them. But
Yep.
if Mac Jones threw a touchdown, it was like, oh, he looked a little bit like Brady, and everybody would lose their minds. But that's how special he was, where it was anybody, Mac, whoever comes after Mac, the person after that, so on and so forth, will forever be compared to Tom Brady. And none of them will ever be able to get to that level, which is so unfortunate because, there are going to be great players in this organization and the NFL itself, like Patrick Mahomes, but we've seen it with Patrick Mahomes, who's had an unbelievable start to his career. He's looking like he's on the trajectory to being an all-time great. and he even can't get out from the shadow of Tom Brady, and he never will. And it is unfortunate, but to look at it in the perspective that we are today, that's how special he was. That's who Tom Brady was. He is the gold standard, like you said, and no one's going to get there. No one's going to even come remotely close. But to have the guy and everybody know that he's the guy and to be striving for that, I think it's going to be great for the game moving forward. Just we've seen perfection. Now let's see how close we can get to it. I think it's going to be fun, especially in the coming years where we have a ton of really talented young quarterbacks in the league. Let's see how close they can really get. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and that, like we've said, a million times, that's a testament to who he is.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one thing we could talk about, though, honoring Brady, is favorite moments. Like if you had one Tom Brady moment to choose from throughout his 22-year run in the NFL, and you probably choose one of the first 20, but
right.
If you had to choose one, what's the one that comes to mind as maybe your favorite one, or maybe a special one, or something that stands out for whatever reason?
So I'm not going to get too cute on this because there are a ton of little ones, regular season games, playoff games that you can pick from, but 28-3 and where I was at, a lot of memories and how important they are to you are about you, not really about the memory of the person like we're talking about Brady. But I was 17. I was in high school. I was at my peak, like football, finding out where in my life, I was like, I want to do that for my life. Not play, obviously, but I want to be involved in this game for the rest of my life because that's how much I love this game. And to see him just do it perfectly for 35 minutes after, not playing his best, but the team falls behind, and just seeing him kind of flip a switch and be like, all right, it's time for me to do what I do. And if I had to pick one moment from that game, obviously there's a million, but him standing there and looking up while everybody knows that they won the Super Bowl, he's looking up at the video score or board, and everybody remembers Edelman for this, but Edelman jumps onto him and he's like, yeah, we won. And he goes, no, they have to review it. And he's just so locked in. And for me, that's who Tom Brady, he's a psycho. I say it all the time on our show on Pat Station. He's tapped. He's crazy. And that's what makes him so special, because he's so locked in when he needs to be. And to see him look up and everybody in the world is celebrating around him, and he goes, no, it's not over. Like, we need to make sure it's over before I'll celebrate. And then Edelman goes on and does his whole thing where he's yelling at people, telling them to get off the field. But that's the moment that just came to me when I'm thinking about it, is him being so locked in, and that represents it, because there was a point in that game where he flipped the switch and he said, it's time for me to be perfect and to win this game, and he did it. And that's, no one's ever going to come close to that mentality. I don't think he had the mentality that you look for out of a quarterback, and that's a good moment that encapsulates that.
Yeah, absolutely. That being able to lock into something, like if Tom Brady was on, nobody was on as much as he was.
Right.
You could look at, like, you could go back all the way to like one game that stands out to me is the 2012 game against San Francisco. The Patriots lost that, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, Brady just went, something clicked, and he just went berserk. And he did it time and again. He did it against the Seahawks in probably the biggest game of his life,
Right.
coming off the Deflategate stuff.
Situation,
yeah. And going against an elite defense, like one of the best defenses we've ever seen, and he just bam, 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 like that. And when Brady was on, a 28-3 is a perfect example of that. Nobody could hang with him. There is no chance in hell that he wouldn't find a way to win most of the time, find a way to elevate everybody around him. And that is a skill that is unmatched, and that we'll never see again, probably.
Do you have a moment, a specific moment, other than, you said San Francisco, but
yeah, but that's not that was a regular season game. I'm thinking about like from two perspectives. From a personal perspective, I would pick Super Bowl 36 because that was the first ever game that I watched really
Okay.
focused on what was happening. I was 10 years old at the time, so nobody like I didn't understand the rules. I didn't understand a thing about the game. But growing up in Europe, we had one game at a time per year, and that was the Super Bowl. And I asked my parents to videotape it because I couldn't watch it because it's like I don't know 2 a.m. over here when the game's played, and I had to go to school the next day. So locking yourself away from information was easy back then. I mean, there was no internet to speak of.
Right.
So I went back home, I put the tape in, I watched the game. I didn't understand a thing, but I understood that, hey, this young guy, back then he was still a young guy, um, nobody expected him to be here. Nobody expects him to win. And I kind of related to that. He was the underdog, and he was a kid that didn't have a shot in the world, and here he was leading the Patriots to the win. Uh, I never saw that because the tape cut off before the game was over, so I never actually saw the Patriots win. But I really felt connected in a weird, like 10-year-old sense to this guy that just he wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to play against this immensely talented Rams team, and yet he did, and yet he played well, and yet he led them to a victory. And that resonated with me, and that left an impression on more than just a sports fan level, I would say. And for that, I am thankful to have seen that, to have witnessed that. And it's well, Tom Brady apparently released a statement on Instagram about the Patriots. So
Oh,
there's
nice.
that.
I'll let you finish, and then we'll read
Yeah.
that off.
Yeah, it was just nice to witness, just incredible to see him do all those things without anybody counting on him to do them, and he kept at it, and I kept following him, and I kept um, watching his legend grow, and but it all started on that February day in 2002, and that was nice. That was pretty special, and it still is looking back at it.
Yeah. So we've got the statement. It's short. I don't know if it's going to do it for people. People are very upset, but he um he took the statement that the Patriots or that Robert Kraft released, and he said, "Thank you, Patriots and Patriot Nation. Beyond grateful and love you all." Put that on his Instagram. So I'm sure there's plenty to come in terms of ceremonies and
Yeah.
trophies and whatever they give people when they do good at their job. Plaques, maybe he'll get a plaque, but um, I think
Maybe,
that's.
yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, maybe they'll rename Route One or
They
something
should.
like that.
You know what's funny? I don't know if you know this, but there are two Route Ones. It stops and then it restarts later. Just take the one near
Yeah,
Gillette and name it Tom Brady Highway because it's
yeah,
confusing.
yeah.
You get on Route 1 and you expect to go all the way to Gillette, and it just doesn't work that way. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Those who know
Do
know.
do the right thing.
Yes, I'm a very big fan of the idea that if you've ever been to Gillette, anybody who has, there's kind of like a little walkway to go up to the second level where you get in on another entrance, and then there's kind of the main entrance next to the Hall of Fame and everything. There's just a big old area where you can slap a ginormous statue. If anyone deserves one, they don't have one at Gillette, obviously, because before it was built, there was no one that deserved one. But
John Hanna maybe, but
maybe.
like a guard
And
is not the same as the greatest
I
quarterback of
feel
all
like
time.
if you told John Hanna, like, "Hey, we're gonna build a statue," he'd be like, "Sick, I'll see it eventually. I'm not coming up for that. Like,
Yeah, no
I've got
way.
to farm my hogs or something." So he had better things to do.
Yeah,
No, but seriously, like if there was ever a perfect time to start, especially the Patriots kind of have retired numbers, but not really because they give them out and they're not really like stationed up around the stadium or anything. Number 12 is if you put anybody in that number, everybody's going to lose their minds. And there's no reason not to retire that number and just to make it, dark blue gold, good idea. Just the right height so fans can give it a high five. Just to be like, yeah, Tom. But there will be plenty of things. I'm sure statues, like we said.
And they are rebuilding, the north end of Gillette Stadium anyway. So
right, the open end.
That's the perfect opportunity to maybe add something special about.
Maybe you could even do it like Denver, where they have that ginormous horse on one end. Just do a ginormous Tom Brady like looking over the field. That
or doing a ginormous Tom Brady just standing on like Game of Thrones, but with helmets of other teams, and him reigning supreme, something like that. I don't know. The other, like, whatever you do, honor that man appropriately. And knowing the Patriots and knowing how much Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft care about the image that they have built, they will do something. And they will do something special. And I believe Brady will do something different than this one Instagram story, which feels like a little bit of reaction to all the pushback to not mention the Patriots. But no need to go into that. But the thing is, Tom Brady deserves all the love and all the appreciation, not just from Patriots fans, but and Buccaneers fans, but like fans of football. Yes, he may have tormented you for 22 years. He may be the single reason your team has never won a Super Bowl. But you got to witness it. You got to see him be great. And that's something like a lot of people should be happy about.
Yes, I agree. I think it's a good place to end because I'm sure he'll just keep releasing stuff and it'll keep going. But to put a cap on it, Tom Brady retires from the NFL after 22 seasons, 20 with New England, 2 with Tampa. Greatest quarterback player the league has ever seen, the greatest sportsman that I've ever seen personally. So that'll do it from us. Bern, do you have any final words for the people? This is some people, it might be their first time seeing you. So do you have any words for the people?
People.
There you go. Perfect.
Stay strong. And we're on to Mac Jones anyway. We've been on to Mac Jones since last year. But it's nice to take some time to look back and honor Tom Brady for all that he has done to this organization, to the people following it, and to the region.
All right, so that'll do it. We will see everybody soon. We've got a ton of stuff coming up, podcast, video, audio, on the website, of course. Bern writes 80 things a day, so keep you guys with plenty of content. Be on the lookout tomorrow for some Senior Bowl stuff. Tom Brady ruined it today. I'm a little bit mad at him. I almost didn't do this because of him, but we'll see you guys in the next time we do this. Hopefully it's not because somebody very important retired.